High unseen heroes. This one's for those still climbing, still breathing, still trying. Let's begin the story. Part 1. One more step could change everything. Have you ever stood at the edge of your limits? Not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, even spiritually. That moment when your breath shortens, your vision blurs, and your heart whispers, you've given it your all. And still something inside you says, try one more time. This story isn't about victory medals or standing on podiums. It's about the space between giving up and going forward. It's about a man named Aiden, a 27-year-old with a history full of closed doors, missed chances, and a heart that refused to stop knocking. Aiden had never been anyone's idea of an athlete. He didn't grow up with trophies on his shelves or early morning practices. He wasn't carved from stone or powered by genes that scream runner. What he had, though, was a different kind of fire, one that doesn't roar but burns quietly. The fire of not being done yet. He made the decision to run a marathon, not because someone challenged him, but because life had, and he was tired of backing down. His training started clumsy. The first mile nearly broke him. His legs felt like anchors, his lungs like paper. But he didn't stop. He couldn't. There was something deeper than fitness at stake, his identity. Every morning I laced up. I wasn't just preparing to run, he later said. I was telling my past, you don't define me. He ran through neighborhoods that never believed in him, past the school where teachers called him average, past the empty fields where he once stood alone while others were chosen. Each step wasn't just forward, it was freedom. By the time he reached the 17th mile in one of his longest training runs, the sky was gray. His shirt clung to him, soaked in sweat. His body screamed, "This is enough. You're done." Every joint pulsed with resistance. His mind, once sharp, now whispered doubt. No shame in stopping here. Nobody would blame you. You've done more than most. And he nearly agreed. But then he remembered a quote scribbled on the mirror he faced every morning. The difference between ordinary and extraordinary is that little extra. That extra was one more step. He looked down at his trembling legs. The pavement looked endless. But somewhere deep inside, below the fatigue, beneath the fear, he found a flicker of something raw and primal. He whispered to himself, just one more step. One step, then another, and another. It wasn't magic. It was ugly. His stride was uneven, his breath ragged, and yet he kept moving. The pain didn't vanish. The doubt didn't disappear. But the moment he took that one more step, he proved to himself something powerful. Discomfort is temporary. Regret lasts forever. As he passed mile 18, something shifted. It wasn't just his pace, it was his belief. He wasn't running from his past anymore. He was running into his future. He thought about all the times he had quit in life, the jobs he'd walked away from, the relationships he didn't fight for, the dreams he buried too soon. And in that moment, he made a decision. This time, not again. By the time he hit mile 20, his body was a battlefield, but his spirit, untouchable. He remembered another quote from a podcast he loved. When you think you're done, you're only 40% done. That blew his mind the first time he heard it. Now, it fueled him like rocket fuel. He clenched his fists and said, I'm not done. Mile 22, his vision blurred. He started to cry, not because of the pain, but because of the realization. He was doing it. Not just running, but rewriting his own narrative. He wasn't the quitter anymore. He wasn't the guy who almost made it. He was becoming the man who finishes what he starts. Mile 24. The pain turned into power. The struggle became sacred. His feet felt like lead, but his chest was on fire, not from exhaustion, but from pride. And when he finally crossed the imaginary finish line at 26.2 miles, alone on an empty road, no cheering crowd, no camera flash, no medal, he fell to his knees and laughed, then cried, then screamed into the sky, because he had done the impossible by choosing not to quit. And here's the truth. Sometimes the most heroic thing you can do is not give up. Sometimes one more step isn't just a step, it's a revolution. For Aiden, that run wasn't just training for a marathon. It was training for life. It was a reminder that in moments of breaking, there's a chance to break through. So the next time you feel done, when your legs shake, your heart aches, and everything in you begs to quit, remember this. The power isn't in the miles you've run. It's in the step you haven't taken yet. Take it. Part 2. The fire within the fall. Sometimes life doesn't knock politely. It barges in, flips your table, breaks your spirit, and leaves you on the floor wondering, was I even meant to do this? It doesn't always look like failure. Sometimes it feels like failure breathing down your neck, slow, suffocating, constant. That's the storm Maya walked through. Maya was 24, fierce, ambitious, and unapologetically obsessed with her dream, building an online lifestyle brand that didn't just sell products but told stories. She poured herself into it, not just her time, but her soul. Every product listed was handpicked. Every post written was crafted like poetry. Every design came from sleepless nights fueled by iced coffee and raw passion. But passion doesn't pay bills. In her first year, she barely scraped through. Suppliers ghosted her. Orders got delayed. Customers canceled. Every little win was followed by a bigger loss. But still she fought. Why? A dream worth having is a dream worth bleeding for. She believed that, until life tested just how much blood she was willing to give. It was a cold December night when it all came crashing down. Her site had made 0 sales again, for the 3rd day in a row. Her account balance had dipped into the red. She owed money. Rent was due. She had ignored her friends for months, cut back on everything, even skipped meals to keep going. But now, nothing. She sat on the floor of her apartment, surrounded by inventory that wouldn't move, staring at the glow of her laptop screen. It mocked her. The Shopify dashboard showed 0. 0. 0. 0. She broke. Not the kind of break where you scream or throw something. No, this was the silent break. The kind where your body just caves in. The kind where the world fades out and the only thing you hear is your own breathing. And it sounds like defeat. She cried. But these weren't tired tears. These were, I've given everything and still lost tears. And in that hollow space between hope and heartbreak, she whispered, maybe I'm not cut out for this. But then something unexpected happened. The silence spoke back. Not loudly, not dramatically, but soft, like a flicker. What if you try one more time? At first, she laughed bitterly. Seriously? That's all I've been doing. But the whisper didn't stop. It grew. And somewhere beneath the pain, beneath the exhaustion, beneath the disappointment, was a spark. Tiny, weak, but alive. So she stood up, wiped her face, and did one thing. She opened her email, typed a message to an influencer she had admired for years. someone who had ignored her previous 5 pitches. This time, she didn't send a long proposal. She sent one line. "If you read this, you'll find something beautiful." Then she attached her product image, hit send, closed her laptop, and went to bed without hope, but with a strange kind of peace. The next morning, she woke up to 187 notifications. Ping, ping, ping. Her phone was a buzzing mess. That influencer, yes, the one she thought would never reply, not only responded, they shared her product with a caption that said, "Just when I thought I'd seen everything, this brand proves art and business can live together." And boom, viral. Thousands of likes, hundreds of shares, comments pouring in like a dam had burst. Orders started flowing faster than she could track. In 1 week, she sold out her entire stock. By month's end, she had paid off 70% of her debt. In 3 months, her brand became a go-to name in her niche. By the 6th month, she opened her first physical store. But you know the best part? It wasn't the money. It wasn't the fame. It wasn't the validation. It was the realization that everything she thought had broken her had actually built her. Your breaking point is also your making point. She didn't rise in spite of her breakdown. She rose because of it. Because that night on the floor, when she could have quit, she didn't. She gave it one more shot. It wasn't magic. It was courage. Not the loud kind, but the kind that whispers, "You still have something left. Try again." Maya now speaks at entrepreneur meetups, and she doesn't talk about strategy or marketing tricks. She talks about that night, the 0 sale day, the email that changed everything, and the whisper that refused to let her quit. Success, she says, isn't built on perfect plans. It's built on broken moments when you decide to stand anyway. So if you're reading this, stuck in your own storm, remember this. Sometimes the fire you need is buried inside the fall you fear. Let it burn. Part 3. The mountain only the brave can climb. Some mountains don't rise from the earth. They rise inside you. For Chris, the climb began long before he understood what success meant. He wasn't the valedictorian, wasn't on the honor roll. He didn't wear a team jersey or stand on a stage to accept medals. In fact, he didn't even make it to graduation. Chris was that kid, the one teachers dismissed, the one classmates mocked, the one whose name no one remembered until they needed someone to laugh at. He was a ghost in crowded halls, a name on a list, a punchline. But what no one saw was what he was quietly building behind the scenes: resilience. Sometimes, the ones no one sees coming are the ones who hit hardest. We dropped out of high school. It wasn't in a blaze of rebellion. It was in silence. Just him and a school system that had given up on him years ago. But instead of feeling free, he felt invisible. He started working at a gas station. Midnight shifts, bleary-eyed mornings, customers who never looked him in the eye. He pumped gas while watching people drive off into lives that seemed brighter than anything he could imagine. And still, he moved. He took night classes at a local community center. He couldn't afford textbooks, so he'd sit for hours at the public library, copying notes by hand. On most nights, he slept in the back seat of his 1998 Honda, curled up in the same hoodie he wore to work. No one cheered for him. No one clapped when he passed a test. There were no "you got this" messages. But there was a voice inside. It didn't yell. It whispered, "You're not done yet." Grit isn't loud. It's the quiet refusal to stay down. Every day was a grind. One more resume sent. One more class attended. One more book read by flashlight when the parking lot was empty. Rejection after rejection. Doors slammed. Emails unanswered. But he kept going. Not because he had a master plan, but because he had belief. Belief that this wasn't the end of his story. Belief that his past didn't define his potential. It took 7 years. 7 years of being overlooked, underestimated, and underpaid. But in year 8, something shifted. One of his essays, written at 3 a.m. in the back seat of his car, got published on a small blog. It didn't go viral. It didn't trend. But someone read it, and they reached out. That someone? A local speaker who ran mentorship programs for troubled teens. Your words sound like truth, he told Chris. Ever thought about sharing your story live? Chris said yes before his fear could say no. The first time he stood on a stage, his hands trembled. He wasn't polished. He wasn't smooth. But he was real, and the room felt it. He didn't talk about success. He talked about survival. He didn't preach. He shared scars. He didn't quote gurus. He quoted pain. By the end of the session, 3 students hugged him. One of them said, "You sound like me." That night, Chris didn't sleep in his car. He slept in peace. It wasn't long before schools began calling him. His story spread. Slowly but surely. He wrote more. Spoke more. His words weren't fancy, but they were fierce. Soon, a publisher picked up his first book, Climbing from the Bottom. It hit shelves, then hearts. Chris, the high school dropout who once slept in his car, became a published author, a motivational speaker, and most poetically, a mentor to the very kids who used to laugh at him. The full circle wasn't a moment. It was a mountain, and he climbed it step by step. The mountain didn't shrink. He just grew stronger. He tells audiences today, you're not weak for falling. You're strong for still wanting to rise. The climb isn't supposed to be easy. It's supposed to change you, because that's what pain does if you let it. It shapes the steel in your soul. It carves the story in your spine. Chris didn't erase his past. He rewrote its meaning. When someone asked him what kept him going when it would have been easier to quit, he smiled and said, "Because one more step didn't cost anything, but quitting would have cost everything." His life is proof that success isn't just about talent. It's about tenacity. It's about choosing to rise when gravity has every reason to pull you down. So if you're staring at your own mountain, whether it's addiction, failure, loneliness, poverty, understand this. You don't need to know the whole path. You just need to take one more step. Some mountains are only meant to be climbed by those who refuse to crawl. Climb, even if you shake. Climb, even if you cry. Climb because standing still won't change the view. Climb because that next step might just be the one that changes everything. Just like it did for Chris. Part 4. The silent war you don't see. Not every warrior wears armor. Some wear makeup and tired smiles. They pack lunchboxes, send emails, fold laundry, and walk through life appearing whole, while falling apart on the inside. Sarah was one of them. To the world, she was winning. A steady corporate job. A husband who adored her. A daughter who lit up every room she entered. The perfect Instagram family. But perfection, Yanni, is a filter. Behind closed doors, Sarah lived in slow collapse. She smiled because it was expected. She performed because it was required. But when the world turned its back, she turned toward her own reflection and saw a stranger. The scariest prison is the one built inside your own mind. She didn't remember when it began. Maybe it was the endless meetings where no one listened. Maybe it was the years of bottling her emotions because strong women hold it together. Maybe it was just exhaustion, the kind that sleep doesn't fix. Every morning, she would wake up and stare at the ceiling. Her heart raced, not out of excitement but dread. The thought of leaving the bed felt like climbing Everest barefoot. She didn't want to die. She just didn't want to keep feeling like this. Getting dressed was a mission. Small talk at work, torture, phone calls, anxiety triggers, family gatherings, performance acts. Her face could win Oscars, but her soul was bruised. Smiles lie, eyes don't. She started losing interest in the things she once loved. Reading, baking, music. The joy was gone, replaced by a constant hum of sadness she couldn't explain, not even to herself. And the worst part, she couldn't talk about it. Because what do you have to be sad about, Sarah? That question was a dagger. How do you explain to people that you're drowning in a pool everyone else thinks is shallow? One morning, she stood in front of the mirror. Her eyes, once filled with light, looked hollow, like someone had turned the brightness all the way down. She didn't cry. She just stared, empty. Then, in the lowest whisper, she said, "I don't want to do this anymore." That was the moment, the edge, the silent scream. But fate has strange timing, because just then, her bedroom door creaked open. Her little daughter walked in, sleepy-eyed, clutching her teddy bear, and without a word, wrapped her tiny arms around Sarah's waist. No questions, no advice, just presence. And in that moment, something cracked open inside Sarah. It wasn't a fix, it wasn't a cure, but it was a reminder that love can be loud, even when it's silent. That sometimes we stay not because we feel strong, but because someone small needs us to. When you can't find a reason to keep going, sometimes the reason finds you. Sarah didn't have a magical recovery. She didn't leap into action or find instant clarity. She did something far more powerful. She chose to stay. She chose to survive. Not the dramatic kind of survival that movies show. The quiet kind. The kind where you brush your teeth even when it feels pointless. Where you reply to one email when 100 wait. Where you smile at your child even when your heart is shattered. She saw a therapist, started journaling, began walking 10 minutes a day, not to lose weight, but to remember movement. She learned to say no, to ask for help without guilt, to cry without shame, to tell the truth. I'm not okay today, and that's okay. Real strength is surviving what no one sees and still choosing not to disappear. And slowly, inch by inch, life didn't get easier, but she grew stronger. Her anxiety didn't vanish. Her depression didn't evaporate, but her power grew louder than her pain. She became the kind of woman who stands not because she's fearless, but because she knows what it's like to almost not stand at all. And today, Sarah still fights, but she no longer fights alone. She shares her story with others, with mothers, with women, with men, with anyone who has ever stared into the mirror and whispered, "I can't do this anymore." Because now she knows the truth. Courage isn't running toward battle. Courage is waking up to one inside you and choosing to keep breathing anyway. So if you're out there feeling unseen, unheard, misunderstood, listen carefully. You're not broken. You're not weak. You're fighting a silent war. And every breath you take is a battle won. No one may clap for you. No stage, no standing ovation. But you deserve medals, Yanni, because surviving, that is undefeated strength in disguise. Part 5. Legacy isn't built in leaps, but in steps. What separates the forgotten from the unforgettable? What makes someone leave a legacy while others simply leave? The truth isn't glamorous. It's not about genius, wealth, or luck. It's about that single, quiet, brutal choice to take one more step when it hurts the most. Let's make this personal. This final story, it's about you. Yes, you reading these words. Not someone on stage. Not someone with a spotlight. Not someone whose name trends on social media. You, who's been quietly fighting battles no one claps for. Let's pause here and ask honestly. What's the thing you've wanted to start but never did? What's the pain you've been carrying like a shadow that won't leave your side? What's the vision that still haunts you at night when the world is asleep? Maybe you've tried before and failed. Maybe you've been laughed at, ignored, underestimated. Maybe the loudest voices aren't around you. They're inside you, telling you it's too late, you're too broken, or you're simply not enough. But here's what no one told you. You don't build a legacy in leaps. You build it in tiny, trembling, unseen steps. One decision, one attempt, one heartbeat of courage, over and over and over again. You think greatness looks like fireworks? No, it looks like waking up after another sleepless night and saying, I'll still try. It looks like writing the email, making the call, going to the gym, saying, I forgive you, even when your pride begs you not to. Do you want to know what legacy actually is? It's not a statue. It's not a name in a book. It's your child watching you not give up. It's your friend quietly deciding not to quit because you didn't. It's the stranger who reads your words, hears your voice, or sees your work and whispers, maybe I can too. And none of that happens in a single leap. It happens when you show up on the day you wanted to disappear. Take a second and reflect. Who would you become if you simply refused to stop? Not rushed, not exploded into glory, but just kept going. You're not too late. You're not too weak. You're not invisible. The world may not applaud yet, but that doesn't mean your step doesn't matter. One step can still rewrite everything. Don't look for the finish line. Look for the next foot forward, because that's where the transformation is. Legacies are never built in noise. They're built in quiet moments of discipline, of resilience, of soul-shattering decisions to rise. You think you're stuck? You're not. You're being shaped. You think you failed? You haven't. You're being refined. You think you've lost? Maybe. But maybe that loss carved out a place in you where greatness will take root. Don't underestimate the power of being the one who stayed in the fight. Don't ignore the miracle of still being here. Because truth is, the one more step, it's not about crossing the finish line. It's about becoming the kind of person who never lets the finish line define them. Here's the reality. You might take a step and still fall. You might take a step and hear nothing but silence. But that step, it still counts. It still matters. Because it's training your heart to beat louder than your doubt. So let me ask you again. What is the step you've been avoiding? Is it speaking your truth? Is it trying again? Is it walking away from something that's been quietly killing you? Whatever it is, take it. Not next year. Not next week. Now. Because one more step doesn't just get you closer to your goal. It makes you the kind of person who reaches goals. That's the real reward. When the applause fades, when the lights dim, when no one's watching, you'll still be standing. Not because you didn't fall, but because you refuse to stay down. This is your story. And trust me, it's far from over. Your breakthrough isn't buried in perfection. It's hiding in persistence. So whether you're healing from heartbreak, rising from rejection, chasing an impossible dream, or just breathing through the weight of another ordinary day, take the step. One more. Just one. Not because it's easy, because it's yours. And the power of that step, it's not just in what you achieve. It's in who you become. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time.